The galaxy was full of wonders, stars, planets, civilizations, all teeming with life. But for every magnificent discovery, there were those who fell through the cracks, those who became invisible to the universe. When the alien ship crashed onto the remote planet of Vothar IV, its passengers were unprepared for the hostile environment. The harsh winds and the constant electrical storms made survival difficult. But it wasn't just the planet that posed a threat. The beings who arrived were vulnerable, fragile, and helpless. Alien girls who had no knowledge of how to defend themselves. They had been aboard a vessel, traveling through the stars, unaware of the chaos and turmoil that awaited them. The ship's wreckage had left them stranded. The crew that had been supposed to guide and protect them was gone, and all that remained were the survivors. 4 young alien girls, each with different features, yet united by a shared purpose: survival. But survival wasn't a promise on Vothar IV. The planet, though rich in resources, was unforgiving. Those who arrived after the crash, including scavengers, bounty hunters, and would-be rescuers, saw only the opportunity for profit. These girls, with their delicate features and strange, glowing skin, were viewed as little more than commodities. The intergalactic black market had no use for the helpless and vulnerable. Many saw them as expendable, and so they were abandoned, but not by everyone. In the midst of all the neglect, there was one person who cared, one who wasn't blinded by greed or self-interest. His name was Ethan Westbrook, a mechanic and an explorer from Earth. He had been part of a small salvage crew working on the outskirts of Vothar IV, looking for old shipwrecks to scavenge. When he received the distress signal from the alien ship, he hadn't been prepared for what he would find. Ethan had always considered himself a man of integrity, someone who respected life and believed in doing what was right. When he found the girls weak, cold, and terrified, his heart broke. They were stranded, isolated, and afraid. And yet, in the dim glow of the wreckage, there was a spark of something in their eyes. They were not just helpless victims. They were survivors, and they deserved better than abandonment. The first girl he found was Zura, a tall alien with pale, violet skin and eyes that glowed like the stars. Her long, flowing hair was streaked with shimmering silver, and her arms were covered in strange tattoos that seemed to pulse faintly. She had been the leader of the group, the one who had tried to keep the others calm in the face of fear. But even the strongest of leaders could not save them from the harshness of their situation. The second girl was Lyra, small and frail, with golden skin and wings that had once fluttered in the wind of her home planet. She had tried to use her wings to escape, to fly, but the crash had left her with broken wings and a broken spirit. Her tears had been endless when Ethan found her, and it was clear that her hope had all but vanished. Then there was Eris, the quiet one. Her silver hair flowed like liquid mercury, and her translucent blue eyes always seemed to be watching, observing, but never speaking. She had the power to heal with her touch, but there was little she could do in such a dire situation. Her ability to connect with the planet's energy could have been their saving grace, but even she couldn't fight the bleak reality that surrounded them. The youngest of them all was Mira, with emerald green skin that shimmered under the light. She had the energy of 1,000 suns, her laughter infectious, and her spirit unbroken. But Mira was just a child, and no child should have to survive in such an environment. It was clear to Ethan that she was the most vulnerable of them all. Ethan did not hesitate for a second. He carried them all, one by one, out of the wreckage into the safety of his ship. It wasn't much, just a small shuttle designed for salvage missions, but it was better than nothing. He made it his mission to care for them, to ensure they had food, warmth, and most importantly, hope. He knew that the galaxy could be cruel, but he refused to let it be cruel to these girls. Days turned into weeks. Ethan built shelter for them in a nearby cave, using his skills to create a safe space. He tended to their wounds, offered words of comfort, and did what he could to ease their fears. Slowly, the girls began to trust him. They started to see him not as a stranger, but as their protector, their savior. And in turn, they began to open up to him, telling him stories of their home worlds, of their families, of their lost civilizations. But even as Ethan did everything in his power to care for them, the harsh reality of their situation began to sink in. News of the shipwreck had spread across the galaxy, and bounty hunters, scavengers, and even alien slavers had begun circling Vothar for like vultures. The girls were still valuable, even in their weakened state, and everyone seemed to want a piece of them. They were seen as nothing more than assets to be traded or sold. One evening, as Ethan was working on repairs to his ship, he heard the distant rumble of engines. A group of ships were approaching, their lights piercing the darkness of the planet's surface. He knew instantly that they were not here for peace. The girls' safety was in danger, and it was only a matter of time before they were taken. Ethan gathered the girls, urging them to stay close as he prepared to leave. But the planet had one more surprise for him. As he was loading them onto the ship, Zura stopped him. "We can't run forever," she said, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. "If we are to survive, we must stand our ground." Ethan had always been a man of action, but this was different. The stakes were higher. He knew that if he didn't act now, they would never be safe. But Zura's words rang true. Running was no longer an option. Together, with the skills of each girl and Ethan's determination, they formed a plan. Eris used her powers to shield their ship from the oncoming fleet, creating an energy field that blocked their radar. Mira, with her ability to connect to the planet's energy, sent a signal out into the atmosphere, scrambling the enemy ship's communications. Lyra, though fragile, used her knowledge of navigation to chart a safe escape route. But it was the bond they had formed that gave them the strength to fight. Ethan had become not just their protector, but their partner, and they were no longer helpless. They had become a team. As the battle raged around them, Ethan's ship blasted through the atmosphere, narrowly escaping the clutches of their pursuers. The girls, once abandoned and vulnerable, had found their strength, and together they had triumphed. The universe had underestimated them, but they were no longer the helpless alien girls. They were survivors. As they soared into the stars, leaving the danger behind, Ethan looked back at the girls. They had not just found safety, they had found each other. And as the universe stretched out before them, he knew that their story had only just begun.